Okay, we'll get started in about a minute. I see we have 11 people right now, and I know we're expecting about 20 to 25, so we'll just wait another minute or two, and then we'll get started. In the meantime, while we're waiting for the rest of the class to show up, I just want to welcome you to this program and introduce myself. I am Michael Morgenstern, and I work with education at Los Angeles Museum of the Holocaust. For those of you who haven't been to the museum, we are located in Los Angeles. You can see behind me what the museum looks like. This, of course, is a virtual background. We're all working from home at the moment. We are the first Holocaust survivor-founded Holocaust museum in the United States. In the 1960s, a group of Holocaust survivors who settled in Los Angeles came together to build what eventually became our museum that was built here in 2010, which you can see behind me. And they did so with a mission to always commemorate, educate, and inspire the future generations. And unfortunately, for the time being, we are not able to be in the museum's physical space. However, thanks to technology, we are still able to fulfill their mission and to do this for them. So this is something that we're so happy to be able to do. And this late morning, early afternoon, you have the honor and privilege of listening to Engelina Billauer, a Holocaust survivor from Germany. Engelina will share her story with you, and afterwards you can use the Q&A box to type in questions. Feel free to type in questions during the Q&A, but during the talk, but keep in mind she might address some of your answers later, so it might be best to hold the questions till afterwards. Either way, feel free to ask questions and we'll get through as many of those as we can. And I think without further ado, we're about 15 students, so maybe we'll just give it another 30 seconds and then we can get started. In the meantime, again, I just want to welcome everybody, and we're happy that you were able to participate. Also, I know you are from Bakersfield, and we do have, perhaps some of you have been to the museum, but we do have schools that come from Bakersfield. I'm guessing you guys probably did not have to wake up at 6 a.m. to do this morning, but this is actually a benefit. It's a lot easier for us this way to cater to students and audiences who live much further away, but in any case, we're happy to have you, and we will get started now. So again, those of you who missed my introduction, I'll just make this brief. Welcome to our program from Los Angeles Museum of the Holocaust. This morning, you have the honor and privilege of listening to Engelina Billauer, a Holocaust survivor from Germany, who will share her story with you. And afterwards, you can type in questions in the Q&A box, and we'll read them to her, and she'll get through as many as she can. So please join me in welcoming Engelina Billauer. Okay, Engelina, you can start now.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I hope you're all well. My story begins, I was born in Berlin, Germany. We lived in an apartment house. We were the only Jews, but we didn't have any problems until Hitler came to power in 1933. I was 6 years old. I had an older brother, older sister. My parents were handicapped. They couldn't hear and they couldn't speak. So I learned sign language at a very early age. In 1933, when Hitler came to power, everything changed. I went to public school. I was the only Jew in my class. I had to sit in the back of the room. And after 2 years, I was thrown out altogether. And I was taken to a Jewish girls' school. Many times girls came and told us that the male members of their families had been arrested because Hitler opened concentration camps as soon as he came to power. And he made no secret that his plan was to get rid of Jews. Across from our Jewish school was a regular public school. Those kids used to insult us, call us names. In the winter, they would cover rocks with snow thrown at us, but we got used to that too. We got used to all kinds of laws against us. All males had to take the name Israel, and all Jewish women had to take the name Sarah. Every day was something else, but slowly we got used to all that. On November 9th, 1938, I walked to school because public transportation was not allowed. And I smelled smoke in the air. And I passed a neighborhood where there were a lot of Jewish stores. They were all destroyed. All the merchandise was thrown in the street. And the German SS were standing in the doors yelling and screaming, "Don't buy from Jews, we have to get rid of the Jews." When I got to school, we found out that all synagogues had been destroyed, set on fire. All religious items were thrown in the street and set on fire. And that was really the beginning of the really bad time we had to endure. In 1939, we had to start wearing the yellow stars. That, of course, limited us a lot more things. Luckily, my family were all blonde and blue-eyed, and they always thought that Jews have dark hairs and long noses. So while we were blonde, we could get away with a few things. But as soon as we had to wear the yellow star, that was the end of it. Food shopping was allowed only between 4 and 5 in the afternoon. There were no supermarkets, just little stores. And if you went to a store and it was 5 o'clock and nobody helped you, you had to leave or you took a chance to be arrested. In 1940, they started deportations. They came with big moving vans and took whole families away. First, we didn't know, but soon we found out that all these people were sent to Poland, and most of them were killed. In 1942, it was our turn. 2 Gestapo men came at night to our apartment, told us to take a few things and come with them. They took us public transportation to one of the biggest synagogues in Berlin. When we got there, we saw that they had arrested 1,000 people, all kinds, old, young, babies, and they were all sitting on their luggage because the inside of the synagogue was destroyed. On the stage were sitting the SS men and women. 1 million German women volunteered for that. And as soon as we got there, the SS called my sister and me and said, are you sure you're Jewish? Or maybe you have a relative that's not Jewish. But we said, no, we are 100% Jewish. So they sent us back into the audience. We were sitting there for 3 days, no food, no water. After 3 days, they took 1,000 people of all ages through the streets of Berlin. The Germans were standing on the sidewalks clapping. Oh, we finally get rid of the Jews. We were put on a train and the train left. There were SS men and women on the train with us, and the train only stopped for them to get food and water. I was 15 years old, so I didn't really know the geography, but we came to a certain point where the grown-ups said, oh, it looks like we're not going to Poland. That might be better for us, because we had heard what they did to the Jews there. And the train continued. It stopped in Latvia. Riga is the capital of Latvia, and we knew there is a ghetto. So we thought might not be so bad. The train stopped. They took out 10 men, shot them right on the spot, and the train continued. On October 1st, 1942, the train stopped in Estonia. We were chased off the train and told to stand in line. Head of the line were the SS men and women, and they would decide. You go right, you go left. We didn't know what for. And when it came to us, they told my sister and me to go one side, and my parents and the 800 others to the other side. And we knew that our parents don't understand what's going on, and we saw them being put on a bus. So we ran to the bus, and we were sitting on the bus. The SS followed us, started screaming, we told you, you have to stay behind, you have to clean the station. And we said, no, we have to be with our parents. And they said, oh, you'll meet them later. And we never met them again. From the 1,000 people, they selected 200, and we had to clean the station. While we were doing that, we met 3 other girls also from Germany who went through the same thing. And right away, we became friends. After we cleaned the station, they marched us a long way to the first camp. Actually, it was only a small camp, but they marched us to a barrack. Before we entered the barrack, they took jewelry from all the women. We were only women then. And of course, many women refused to give their wedding bands, so they would shoot them right there. They put us into a barrack. There was nothing there, just wooden floors, nothing else. No blankets, no anything. My sister and the 3 girls right away decided we stick together. We slept together on the wooden floor to keep warm. The next morning, they would bring us water and old bread and told us to go to the second barrack, where they had the luggage of all the 1,000 people. We had to unpack and assort. And our people had good stuff, even food, but you couldn't steal anything because they would check you when you left work. That went on for a couple of weeks. In the meantime, they always had occasions to select women We never knew for what, but we soon realized that to be killed. After we had cleaned up that closing bit, one night they took 100 women on a bus and took us to Tallinn. Reval is the capital of Estonia. We arrived there in the middle of the night, and we heard that we are near the ocean because we heard the waves, and they put us into a real old-fashioned prison, all in the dark. We came to a hallway, we had to stand in line, and they would pick 10, push you into a room. Until they had all 110 rooms, then the lights went on and we saw we are in a prison cell. One toilet and one sink. Against the wall, they had like 7 beds. And we told the elderly ladies, because I was always the youngest, that they can have the beds and 3 younger ones will sleep on the floor. During the night, they would check on us. In the morning, they would bring us raw fish. Then we had to make sure that the cell is clean, and they took us down to the backyard. And we saw a German civilian. He gave us a speech that he represents a German construction company. We are going to work for them. We are going to get an extra soup, but if one runs away, 10 will be shot. So they took us, with guards of course, through the city of Tallinn to a shipyard. The shipyard was in bad shape. We assumed that the Russians and the Germans had been fighting there. And our job was now to clean up the rubble. On the shipyard were also German soldiers working because their ships were nearby. They marched in every morning and singing, "We can't wait, forget rid of the Jews. We want to see Jewish blood fling." We had no choice, we had to listen to them. And that went on for a few months. After we had the shipyard cleaned up, they divided us into groups. Each group was headed by a German civilian. They had to work for divers, clean the streets, all kinds of work. We were picked, and our girlfriends, we always together, we were picked by a German man, the only German in all those years that was civil to us. He did things that were very dangerous, he didn't realize it. And after the war, when the state of Israel was declared, we arranged that he will be honored there. He was, but unfortunately he didn't live to see it, but his family. So we worked on the shipyard, and after a while they didn't let us out of prison, and again we didn't know what is the next step. So after a few days being stuck in the prison cell, they took us out, put us on a train again, and took us closer to the Russian border, to the first really concentration camp. It was already occupied. A lot of people, men and women, always separated, and the whole camp surrounded by electric wire. If you touched it, you got a shock. Everybody, the guards and the master of the camp were all SS men and women. the first thing, they shaved our heads. They took our clothes and gave us rags to wear. The coat they gave us had a big Star of David in the back, which would glow at night. And again, we were put into barracks, and during the day we were sent out to work, shovel snow, put ditches for the German soldiers, cut trees in the woods, all kinds of heavy work, very little food, no medical care whatsoever. Many times we came back from work and we had to stand outside, and the main SS men would give us speeches. We had to listen. Sometimes they would pick a man or a woman, and we had to watch how they beat them to death. This went on for quite a while. Then they decided they're going to build another concentration camp, a new one nearby. So again, they picked women, and my sister and I and the 3 girls were invited in the group too. And we came to a new place. There were barracks there, and we had to build chimneys in the barracks and fireplaces for the SS. And after a while, they brought more people, mostly Eastern Europe or Russians. And we were in that camp for a while. Again, heavy work, hardly any food, no medical care, nothing. But we had no choice. We had to do what we were told. After a few weeks there, apparently it got a little more difficult for the Germans. So they decided they'd take us back to Germany. You know, from the group, many of them were killed. So there was only a small group left. And they took us again by train back to Tallinn, near the ships. But they needed the ship for German soldiers. So they just dropped us off on an empty field near the ship. Open field, nothing there, just empty field. Luckily it never rained or snowed. And we didn't work, we were just lying around there. After a while, they finally had a ship for us. They loaded us on the ship, of course, on the bottom, the Germans on top, and the ship left. Once a day, they would come down and look who had died or who was too sick for them. They thought they wouldn't make the trip anyway. They took those bodies and threw them into the ocean. Finally, the ship stopped in Germany, in Danzig. Then it was still German, now it's Poland. They unloaded us from the big ship into smaller ones, down the river to another concentration camp by the name Stutthof. It was a big camp, a lot of people, men, women, all separated, of course. And of course, there never were any children because they had them all killed. We arrived there again. They shaved our heads, they took our clothes, they gave us other rags, and we didn't have to work. We stood around all day. In the evening, they would push us into a barrack. But for all the women that we were, we didn't have room to sit down. So we had to teach ourselves to sleep standing up. Many nights they would come with a pail of cold water, throw it over us and tell us, that's your shower for today. And still wet the next morning in the cold, we had to stand out again all day. We were there also a few weeks, and then somebody came ahead of a factory in Hamburg, Germany, and again picked women to work in the ammunition factory in Germany. So again, by train, we went to Germany, Hamburg, Germany. We knew that there's a big concentration camp, but for the factory, it was not convenient. So they built a smaller one near the factory, and we were only women, headed only by SS men and women. We had to work 12-hour shifts. Many nights when we came home from work, they would make us run around, stand around, give us speeches that the Germans are going to win the war and they're going to get rid of all the Jews. We had to listen to it, and we had to go back to work. That happened many times. Then bombing started. We still had to go to the factory, but the bombing became heavier, so they didn't let us go to work. And they finally decided they're going to close this camp and send us to another concentration camp, which is better known, Bergen Belsen. We were put on a train. We arrived on a platform in Belsen, and we saw that they had brought other survivors from all over, men and women. Many dead bodies were lying on the station, and they took us women marching through some small German towns. Germans didn't say anything, and we came to the gates of Bergen Belsen. Now, we had been in several camps, each one worse than the other, but you had never seen anything like Bergen Belsen. Dead bodies lying around all over, people being very sick lying around. So our job was to pick up the dead bodies and put them into piles. We never did anything to eat or to drink. And by then we were even afraid to drink because we were afraid that they poisoned it. Luckily, after 2 weeks in Bergen Belsen, on April 15, 1945, we saw a big crack. We didn't know what it was. It turned out to be the British Army. Now, they didn't realize what they found, and they weren't prepared for it. So the first thing is they gave us their army ration. Now, many people were so hungry, they grabbed, and thousands of people died right there, even with the British. The good thing is that we witnessed how they arrested all the SS men and women from this camp, and they were put on trial, and some of them were killed. The British decided that we cannot stay there, that it's too full of disease, and nearby were houses where the Germans had lived. So they decided whoever was well enough, they'd take us to these big houses. We finally had a bed to ourselves, a shower, a toilet, and of course the organizations brought clothes, and we were thrilled to be free. And by then also Canadian doctors came. and they went from room to room to see who's sick. Now, when they came to our room, I was sick and one of my girlfriends. They took us out into an ambulance, gave us a shower, put hospital clothes, and put us in one of the buildings that they had made hospitals. Now, my sister couldn't follow the ambulance, so she didn't know where I was. And she went from one building to another until she found me, but I was too sick, so they wouldn't let her in. After 3 weeks, I was a little better, so the girls would push me against the window so my sister could see that I'm still alive. A few weeks after that, she came to visit, and she told them, I'd take her for a walk. She took me for a walk, and we never went back to this place. We went not too far away where they had opened a displaced person camp. People from all over, from all kinds of camps came to look for relatives, for friends, but we knew that we wouldn't find anybody. Among these people that came was a man that my sister knew from Berlin. He was always very active in Jewish organizations. So he told us about Auschwitz. All these years, we didn't know about Auschwitz. So he told us, that he lost his wife and child there. And he and a few other young men were picked to work in a factory near Auschwitz. That factory is the one that produced gas for the gas chambers. After the war, they sued that company and they won. But unfortunately, he didn't live to see it, but we had satisfaction from that. So we lived in that displaced person camp for a while. And organizations were very good to us. Everything was fine. And I knew that my sister was going to the United States, her wish to go. And of course, I would go too. And after we got better, the Swedish government had a plan to take people to Sweden. But we were afraid they would separate us, which they probably wouldn't. But so we didn't want to go to Sweden. We went into this place, person camp. My sister met this man. They decided to get married. He became very active in survivor problems. And they decided, we're sick and tired of living in camps. Before we go, leave Germany, let's just go somewhere and have a normal life. So we moved into another small city near Hamburg. My brother-in-law became the head of the community. The other people came and we started to make a life as well as we could. Germans, of course, were very polite then. They gave us a house that formerly was owned by a Jewish family. We lived in that house, other people came, we all lived together in the house, organizations sent food and all kinds of stuff. One day, an American soldier came and said, we are nearby, but we're leaving and the Russians are coming. And he thought it would be better for the survivors he has to bring them to us, to the British zone. Of course, we agreed. And he brought a busload of survivors. Among these survivors was a young man. He wasn't that young, but he was from Warsaw, Poland. He owned a jewelry store, which the Germans took away and destroyed and stole his merchandise. And we all, while we were in Germany, then he said, we have to go back to normal life. And he opened a little jewelry store too. We always got together, people got engaged, got married, everybody was invited. And we all waited just to be able to leave. This young man had a son. His family were killed in the Warsaw Ghetto. But his oldest son, he had sent him, while the Germans had destroyed his store, he told him to try to run away. And the young man ran away and ended up in Russia. After the war, the Russians didn't tell them the war's over until 1946. And somehow this young man found out that his father had survived. He made his way to Germany. And we all got together again. When he saw me, he fell in love right away. I know. I didn't know anything. I was very, very innocent. But I dated. We went to the movies. I never went by myself. I always took somebody else along. And we go to parties, dancing. In 1948, when the state of Israel was declared, his father, who had remarried another survivor woman, decided he wants to go to Israel. So the son, of course, wanted to go too, but the organizations told him, no, you're young. You can go illegal. So his father said, I don't want you to go illegal. You went through so much. You wait till you get papers to come. So they left for Israel and he moved into the house with us. We continued dating, and after a while, on June 12, 1949, we got officially engaged. He knew that I would never separate from my sister and that their plan was to go to the United States, so he knew I would go there too. So he said, you know what, before we get even papers for the United States, let's go to Israel. Let me see my father and other relatives who went there much before the war. So I said, okay. And we went to Israel. I can't describe the feeling when you land in the state of Israel for what we went through, how we were treated, and we come to a country where everything is Jewish and they welcome you. We stayed with my father-in-law and his wife, and it was the end of 49, and we had to go back to Germany. So my father-in-law said, you know, you're here, let me make the wedding. And I said, I don't want to get married without my sister. She's the only one I have. And you know, we didn't have little phones and fax, but they arranged. My sister came with her husband, a suitcase full of food and a wedding dress for me. On February 4th, 1950, we got married in Tel Aviv, Israel. We couldn't do much sightseeing because everything was occupied. But after the wedding, we had to go back to Germany. We went back to Germany, and still there were no papers from the United States. So we decided we go to Berlin one time. We went to Berlin, we went to the Jewish cemetery where my brother, who had committed suicide, was buried. We had the names of our parents engraved in his stone, so at least their name is somewhere. And we went to the apartment house we used to live. My sister refused. I went up and I saw the next door neighbor is still the same. We lived next door to her. I was born there in the apartment, so she knew me from the beginning. I rang her bell. She almost fainted when she saw me. I told her what her countrymen did, not only to my parents and relatives, but to 6 million other Jews. I got it off my chest. We went down and we went back to Lübeck, and we finally got papers for the United States. But by then I was pregnant, and we were afraid I come to the United States and I have to go to a hospital, have no insurance, no money. So we decided I give birth to my son in Germany. He was born April 27, 1951. And when he was 6 weeks old, we took a laundry basket with a mattress in it. We put him in there, and we went by military plane to New York. New York on June is pretty hot and humid. My baby screamed murder. The immigration took care of us very fast. And we came out. All our friends who had come before welcomed us and said, come and stay here in New York with us. The organization had planned for us to go to Stockton, California. So they all said, why do you want to go there? You don't know anybody. Stay here and we will help. And we agreed. And we moved with another survivor group into the Bronx on the 4th floor, no elevator, no air conditioning, but we didn't know. We were happy we finally landed. And the neighbors were all outstanding looking for an apartment, and finally they found a 1-bedroom on the ground floor. We moved there, we were thrilled. We finally had an apartment. There was no kitchen, just a bedroom and the living room. The living room wall had the refrigerator, a stove, and a sink. We were thrilled. We lived there. The neighbors arranged for my husband to work as a watchmaker. And we were thrilled. Other friends, survivors came. And after a couple of weeks, my sister came with her husband and 2 children. So we all lived in this 1-bedroom apartment. The American soldier that we met before came and my sister went to visit somebody in a house, and she said, oh, they live in a house in the backyard. And we said, yeah, that's nice, but we can't afford it. But this American, who was a lawyer by then, said that's a very good idea. And he arranged for us to get a loan and a house in Fresh Meadows, New York. All our friends thought we were crazy because you had to use the subway and the bus to come. But it didn't take long. On weekends they came, we had a backyard, and neighbors all were unbelievably nice to us. My husband got another job for a big watch company where we had to pick up the broken watches. He would repair and I would bring them back to Manhattan. No question, I got lost on the subway many times, but I found it. So we lived in this house together with my sister, her children, Other friends came, bought houses around us. Every holiday we celebrated together. In 1956, my husband said it's time we have a home of our own. And we bought a home nearby. Of course, not too far from my sister. And again, he continued working at home and I would deliver the watches. Every Friday and Saturday, we would be together, a big family. And in 1957, I had another baby boy. But we continued working. While I made the deliveries, my husband would take care of the two boys. They grew up, they went to public school, junior high school, high school. When my older son finished high school, he said he would like to go to school in California. So we said, okay. So he went for a semester to California. He came back and said, I like California. I want to go back to school there and live there. And we said, not yet. First, you finish college in New York, and then maybe we let you go. He finished college, got married much too early, and he went with his wife to California. We had the same problem with our younger son. In 1977, my sister died, and right after I took my younger son and drove with him cross country to LA. My sons were always very close, so I knew that his brother would take care of him. I dropped them off there and I came back to New York. Pretty soon we had a letter from both our sons. We are a small family. We should be together. You should know your grandchildren and your grandchildren should know you. And we agreed they're absolutely right. In 1984, we sold our business, we sold our house, and we came to LA. By then, both my sons were chiropractors. When we arrived, we had a happy reunion, and my husband said, yeah, but now I have to find work, but I don't want to be a watchmaker. So my son said, don't worry, we took care of that. You can be our office manager and mom can be the secretary. So my husband said, that's my English, I have to call insurance companies, patients. They said, don't worry. Insurance companies, their English is not that great either. And patients will learn to understand. So we worked for them for 16 years. Each my son had two sons, all active in sports. We went to any sport they participated. The grandchildren grew up, and the second grandson, came up with the idea he wants to be a surfer. What kind of a sport is that? But he insisted, and he started surfing. Every morning before school, he went surfing. Never alone, he always took somebody along. And one day, he went surfing, and he got hurt. A wave hit him. He was floating in the ocean. First, people thought he was joking. Then they realized that something's wrong. They fished him out. They rushed him to the hospital. We were all called and we were told that he broke his neck and that he will never walk again. Of course, we were all upset. He was in the hospital, then in a rehab. And after rehab, he insisted on finishing school. He even went to San Diego to college. And when he came back from college, he started again. He wants to serve. And we said, you know, how is that possible? But he started a foundation which is called Life Holds On. He has a lot of volunteers and he helps a lot of people in wheelchairs. They bring them to the beach and they help them to surf. He is now one of the most professional injured surfers. We were all still worried about him because what's going to be with him. His older brother got married and moved to San Diego. Now, we really didn't know what would be with Jesse. Luckily, he met a young lady. They got married and they moved into a house in Westchester. We had a very, very nice wedding. Unfortunately, 4 months after they got married, my husband died of cancer. A week after his funeral, I had a stroke. I was rushed to the hospital. I was there for a while, rehab. I came back to my apartment in Santa Monica, and my children decided that it's too big and that I can't live by myself anyway. So they put me into a assisted living hub. So I went there. I had, you know, for the beginning, it was the idea. But my children also said, you survived. Somebody is watching you. Now you have to go out and tell your story. They brought me to the Museum of Tolerance and they hired me and I speak there every Monday and tell my story. Of course, now it's not. And after a while, luckily, before the virus started, my older son decided I should live with him. And that's what I'm doing now. I live right next door to my son, who lives right next door to his son, and I live right next door to my great-grandchildren. And I think that's all. Thank you for listening. Remember, it's a real story, and don't let it ever happen to anybody again.
Thank you so much, Engelina, for sharing your story with us this morning. We have a few questions from some of the students.
Okay.
First question is, what did you feel when you were liberated?
Oh, excited.
And what is your attitude towards Germans today?
Honestly, I don't care for Germans.
What do you believe we can do to fight indifference, hatred, racism, and anti-Semitism?
Yeah, we have to get rid of that. It will happen over and over again. So somewhere we have to do something to get rid of all that.
And what do you think got you through these times? What do you think got you through the Holocaust?
That's my question.
Okay, just as a reminder to students, you can type in answers in the Q&A box, and I see we have some in the chat. Let me see, we have another one. Did you have any non-Jewish friends growing up? Was one of the students
No,
wants to know how, if you know anything about non-Jews during
no,
this? Yeah.
no.
Okay, well, we have a lot of students who are just saying thank you so much for sharing.
Oh, you're welcome.
And
Thank you
of
for listening.
course, well, thank you so much. Oh, looks like we have, let's see, one more question.
Okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
somebody wants to know how old you were when this started.
When Hitler started, I was 6 years old. When I was arrested, I was 15. When I was liberated, I was 18. And now I'm 92, almost 93.
And let's see, did you, how often throughout your life did you communicate with other Holocaust survivors?
All my friends were only Holocaust survivors. Unfortunately, there are not many left. All my closest friends all passed away.
Was your family religious before this?
I wouldn't say. I mean, we went to synagogues on the high holidays. And, you know, my parents couldn't hear and couldn't speak. So they went to a special one where the rabbi would do sign language.
And does Judaism play a role in your life now? And did it?
Absolutely.
And even though it was so long ago, does it still feel vivid? Do you remember it pretty well still?
I remember that all well, but don't ask me what happened yesterday.
Do we have any other? Oh, let's see. So what was the last time you saw your parents? Was it on the train?
No, when we got off the train and had to stand in line, then they separated.
Do we have any other questions? Looks like that's just about all the questions. So Angelina, I want to thank you so much for
You're
sharing.
welcome.
We thank you for your attention and your questions. And oh, you know, we would like just somebody else wanted to elaborate. If you have any insight on what got you through this, you know, what got you through the
I
Holocaust.
like to think it's my parents that are watching me.
It's a very nice answer. So I think on that note, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We have a professor and students are just saying thank you very much. So we appreciate you so much, and we hope to welcome everybody at the museum in person someday when all of this is over and safe. But in the meantime, we're glad we're still able to do this virtually. So I'm so glad that you have an iPad.
Okay.
You're able to do
Thank
this.
you.
Thank you
Bye,
so much.
Michael.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Okay.